Hello and welcome to NoCast by CMUBS, the podcast where knowledge meets inspiration. I'm your host, and I'm here to take you on a journey through ideas, insights, and stories that shape the world of business, research, and innovation. Each episode, we bring you thoughtful conversations, practical wisdom, and perspectives from experts and changemakers. Whether you're a student, a researcher, or simply someone who loves learning, this is your space to explore, grow, and stay inspired. Thank you for tuning in. Let's dive into today's episode and discover something worth knowing.
You know, we've all seen it. Companies sponsoring local charities, launching these huge environmental campaigns. But what if those good deeds are actually hiding a much bigger story? A story about intense pressure, corporate survival, and, well, a very specific kind of short-sightedness. Okay, let's just dive right into it. We see this stuff constantly, right? Big companies making donations, putting their names on community events, it all gets lumped under this big umbrella called corporate social responsibility, or CSR. But here's the real question we're digging into today. Is all of that good really the same? So, today we're going to unpack some new research that pulls back the curtain on these corporate decisions. And really, it all boils down to one thing: a simple question of balance. Think about it this way. You've got two different flavors of corporate good. On one hand, you have the super visible, quick PR win, the giant check presentation that gets all over the news that same day. But then, on the other hand, you've got the less glamorous long-term stuff, like completely redesigning your supply chain to be truly sustainable. One gets you headlines today, the other actually builds real, lasting value for tomorrow. So why would a company consistently pick the flashy win over the deep, foundational investment? Well, this research points to one major factor: a whole lot of pressure on the people running the show. And a huge source of that pressure comes down to this: the threat of a hostile takeover. I mean, this is basically the corporate version of an ambush, another company trying to buy you out whether you like it or not. For a CEO and their team, it is the ultimate threat to their job security. And that constant looming threat, it can trigger a very specific psychological response. Researchers have a name for it. They call it the myopia trap. Managerial myopia is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like: corporate tunnel vision. When managers feel like their jobs are on the line, their focus just shrinks down to whatever looks good right now. It's kind of like a student who crams like crazy for one quiz tomorrow but totally blows off the huge final project that's due next month. They're solving the immediate crisis, sure, but they're doing it at the expense of their future. So, okay, what happens when you take that short-sighted thinking and you apply it to a company's social programs? You get a pretty lopsided approach to doing good. And this brings us to the key idea from the research, something called CSR Inequality. Now, this isn't about how much a company spends year over year. Nope. This is about a serious imbalance within a single year. So a company might be pouring tons of money into community donations, that visible, quick win stuff, while at the exact same time totally neglecting long-term investments in its own employees or making real environmental changes. And it's really crucial not to get this mixed up with something else called CSR variability. That's just when the total budget for doing good goes up or down over a few years. What this new research is zeroing it on is inequality, that skewed, unbalanced way a company splits up its resources for good causes, all at the same time. I mean, this all makes sense in theory, right? But does the data actually prove it? Does the fear of a hostile takeover really, truly cause companies to get all lopsided with their social responsibility efforts? Well, the research found a direct, measurable link, and the answer is right here, in this number. So what does that number actually mean? It means that when the threat of a takeover goes up by a standard, measurable amount, the imbalance in a company's social spending jumps by almost 5%. The data shows a direct cause and effect relationship. The more pressure managers feel to survive, the more they favor those quick, flashy CSR wins over the deep, long-term commitment. But this short-term thinking, it doesn't just create an unbalanced portfolio of good deeds. The research uncovered some other, frankly, more damaging costs to the company's future. And yeah, the damage does not stop there. Just look at what this table shows us. Under that exact same pressure, managers don't just skew their CSR spending, they actually decrease the total amount they spend on it. And maybe even more worrying, they cut funding for research and development. They're sacrificing the company's engine for future innovation just to look good today. So the critical takeaway here is that this damage is systemic. This pressure to hit short-term targets forces managers to essentially mortgage the company's future. It weakens its ability to innovate and its overall health in the long run. Which brings us to the big "so what" question, right? Why does any of this academic stuff matter to those of us outside the boardroom? Well, it turns out the implications are surprisingly broad. They affect investors, employees, and even policymakers. Let's just break down what this means for different people. If you're an investor, this is a huge red flag. A company with a flashy but lopsided CSR strategy might actually be signaling that its management is myopic, that they're not focused on real long-term value. For policymakers, this shows that takeover laws can have these unintended ripple effects on a country's innovation and social progress. And for the rest of us, as employees and customers, a balanced approach to doing good is a really strong sign of a healthy company, one that's genuinely invested in its future and in everybody involved, not just its next quarterly report. Ultimately, this research gives us a new, sharper way to look at how companies behave. So the next time you see a company making a big public show of doing good, it's a reason to pause, to look past the photo op, and to ask a tougher question. Is this a sign of a healthy, long-term strategy, or is it a short-term survival tactic designed more for the boardroom than for the greater good?
Thank you for joining us on NoCast by CMUBS. We hope today's episode sparked new ideas and inspired your next steps. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to follow our podcast and stay connected so you won't miss the insights, stories, and meaningful discussions coming up next. Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and see you in the next episode.